Okay, so we are getting this show on the road a little bit later. I apologize. I had to stay up a little bit late last night because there was a family emergency, which is why I ended up sleeping in and now I ended up here. So, videos coming out later than usual, but we have ourselves some interesting topics to go over, starting out with the Chicago Blackhawks. Take a look at the situation going on in the Windy City. It's no secret that ever since Corey Perry's departure, things have been weird for this team. There was always this idea floating around saying that, okay, no, the Blackhawks are not doing the best they can to resolve this Corey Perry situation, to allow people to feel at ease as to what's happening. They didn't calm the tides, as you could say. But it's been about a week or two since that entire saga went down, since we made all the videos, since we talked about every intricate detail as to that situation, and I feel like now this opens the door for other players on the Chicago Blackhawks to step up and provide leadership in the way that Corey Perry was supposed to. In fact, that is exactly what we are examining today, as Ben Pope on the Chicago Sun-Times a few days ago ended up publishing this article inside the Blackhawks locker room without Corey Perry. What are we going to do to get the energy back? I'll leave a link in the description to this article if you want to go ahead and read it, but essentially, it goes over the comments from 3 other Blackhawks in regards to the Corey Perry situation. They finally speak out about this entire thing. In the wake of Perry's messy departure, even more leadership responsibilities have been shifted onto Nick Foligno, Seth Jones, and Connor Murphy to steer the Hawks through adversity. They explain how they've regrouped and adjusted. The article opens up by how Seth Jones actually was the guiding light after Nick Foligno signed initially with the Blackhawks. When Chicago signed Foligno, he immediately asked Seth Jones about the situation and what it's like being a Blackhawk. I tried to tell him as much as I could. Obviously, it wasn't all fun and games, what I was telling him. I said it's going to be a challenge. You're going to have your work cut out for you. We're still trying to develop that culture with the Blackhawks that we had in Columbus. Now, it goes over an entire thing about how that culture was revolving around Corey Perry. Around the same time last summer, Hawks coach Luke Richardson and GM Carl Davidson sat down with then Lightning veteran Corey Perry for about 40 minutes. They presented him with a Chicago sales pitch that covered, as Perry later described it, everything from under the sun, from family to hockey to schooling. This was indeed a pretty big deal, and Corey Perry acknowledged that there was a big amount of responsibility here, right? So the fact that he ended up leaving was pretty serious, and we all kind of recognize just the ins and outs of how bad that was for the organization, for Corey Perry himself, and for maybe, do I want to say the NHL? I don't know. NHL wasn't really too affected by that, but it sounded nice to have 3 things on a list in that one sentence. But either way, the article goes out there and says this: the Corey Perry saga has finally quieted down, but even more pressure and responsibilities have now been put onto Foligno, Jones, and Connor Murphy, the Hawks' 3 remaining alternate captains, as they seek to provide a roster in transition the guidance it needs. Here is a few comments as to how everything has gone down ever since Corey Perry's departure. This is what Nick Foligno said. There was a little bit of a lull on that road trip when the dust settled and you realized Corey is really not coming back. You could tell the energy he brings was missing. You mourn that loss, and then you realize, alright, it's not changing, so what are we going to do to get the energy back? We realized that other guys in the group have to step up. Now, you're starting to see guys think, I learned, even in the short time, what Corey Perry meant and why he was so effective in his role. You're starting to see that from guys. Tyler Johnson has been a big example of that. He's understanding. Alright, I've got to do a little bit more here. Talking to guys and being more vocal on the bench. Murphy has done a great job of being more vocal, and Jones as well. He's not mostly like that, but he's understanding that he needs to drive that energy in practice. So, you're already starting to see the trickling down effects of Corey Perry and his veteran presence. We all recognize that he was a really good hockey player for a long time. The fact is, he's played in 3 NHL decades now, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. He has been relatively alright in each of these showcases, and it's only really until recently that things got this bad. Here is what the article goes out there and says about Perry and his let's just say, leadership style within the organization. During Perry's 2 months in the Hawks locker room, he didn't actually speak often, but the way everyone quieted down to hear his message whenever he did made him influential. After 18 seasons in the NHL, during which he made the playoffs 15 times and went to the finals 4 times, he had a lot of wisdom to share. Foligno then goes over how a lot of other guys on the team have exhibited more leadership responsibilities. The young guys, they're getting older and they're getting more mature. And it even talks about how Nick Foligno brings a lot of these people over to his house for dinner. So that's pretty nice. Wholesome Blackhawks bonding right there. And that's a sentence that I didn't think I'd ever say, especially with all the controversy that's come out over the past year and a bit. But either way, we have ourselves some more comments made by one Connor Murphy, the longest remaining tenured Chicago Blackhawk in the organization right now. He ends up talking, actually, about Patrick Kane, how Kane's actions spoke so much higher than any words in previous seasons. Now, Murphy, as by far the longest tenured Hawk left, fills some kind of a Kane role. Maybe not in terms of the 100-point scoring, but you get it. I come from some experience of just being here, having some comfort with the staff and the team, and knowing what I've been through and what doesn't work. Knowing my way around can help with anyone who's either uncomfortable or seems like they're trying to find themselves in a new organization. Then, you have Seth Jones speaking out here too. We want to make sure everyone's doing the little things. We've been hit or miss when it comes to those little shot blocks, those little back checks, and things like that. Once you get those little things dialed in, the game becomes a lot easier. We've had a lot of young defensemen and young forwards in our lineup that are still learning the game. When you're young, it's hard to find that consistency every night. We all knew that was going to happen coming into this year, and we're all just trying to find a way to battle through it. So at the end of the day, the Blackhawks, the players themselves, they seem to have a really good attitude about everything that's going on in their organization ever since the Corey Perry departure. It's been a lot of, let's just say, unfortunate reporting going on by people talking about Corey Perry and Connor Bedard and everything else in between. So to hear what some of these Blackhawks players have to say about that entire departure, it is sort of relieving to hear that they know how to do their jobs still, and that they're in a position to continue and strive forward. Just in case you wanted the scoop as to how these guys are doing, let's head over to the Chicago Blackhawks and their point production, see how everybody's going about here. The points leader on the team, of course, is Connor Bedard. He's got 23 points in 27 games played. If this guy was playing in literally any other team with other players that were better than him, yeah, he'd probably have a lot more points than this. You have Nick Foligno with 12 points in 27 games, pretty good pace. Seth Jones has 11 points right there. Corey Perry had 9 points in 16 games, so he was really good, actually, as a point producer on this squad. And then if you go over to the projections, I mean, this season isn't really going to be game-breaking or era-defining for anybody, but at the very least, you have Connor Bedard doing some pretty alright things. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the entire conversation happening from Connor Murphy, Seth Jones, and Nick Foligno. What are your thoughts on how these guys have responded to the Corey Perry departure? Do you think there were a few extra things they needed to say? Do you think this kind of covers it? What are your thoughts on how the Blackhawks are going to do into the future? How long do you think it takes for Connor Bedard to make the playoffs? Because they're certainly not doing it this year. And how many pieces do you think the Hawks are away from actually being competitive? Because Connor Bedard can do wonders by himself, but that's just a thing. He's by himself. Not to say that Nick Foligno and all these other guys, Ryan Donato, Lucas Reichel, Dickinson, not to say that they're bum players, but, I mean, come on. Like, if you put any of these guys on other teams, they may not be having the same amount of point production that they have right now. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Blackhawks' response to Corey Perry. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.